Commander Jack Harlan had trained for every possible first contact scenario: aggressive, peaceful, deceptive, even telepathic, but nothing had prepared him for this. The moment he stepped off the shuttle and onto the glossy marble platform of the Cathali capital ship, a dozen camera eyes hovered around him, recording Earth's ambassador on his historic diplomatic mission. The air smelled of something sweet, like cinnamon and static. The Catholic guards stood tall and sleek, their golden armor humming faintly with energy. At the end of the platform stood the royal family, led by Emperor Threxen and his daughter, Princess Zayara, whose silver eyes sparkled like twin moons under the light of the ceremonial torches. Jack swallowed nervously. Earth's language software had done its job. He could understand their words and speak back. As he approached the royal family, he remembered his briefing: be respectful, smile slightly, no sudden gestures. But instinct kicked in, and before he could second-guess himself, Jack extended his right hand in greeting, palm open and fingers relaxed, the most common Terran gesture of peace. Zayara tilted her head in surprise, her long, glimmering robes brushing against the polished floor. Then, slowly, with a look of curiosity and grace, she placed her hand in his, and they shook once, firmly. The entire court fell silent. The cameras froze. Even the distant hum of the ship seemed to hold its breath. Jack looked around, confused. "What did I do?" he muttered. Emperor Threxen's mandibles clicked once, twice, and then he roared in approval, his voice echoing like thunder. "The sacred gesture has been offered and accepted," he bellowed. "By the law of the Starshell Accord, the Terran has chosen the princess as his life mate." Jack blinked. "Wait, what?" He turned to his translator, a tiny AI orb hovering by his ear. "Please repeat that." The orb did, word for word. Jack's blood ran cold. Zayara was smiling now, and though she looked calm, there was a faint glow pulsing from her skin, a Cathali sign of joy and consent. No, it was just a handshake," Jack said quickly, stepping back. But the damage was done. The guards didn't raise their weapons. They moved in respectfully, forming a protective circle around him. Protective, not hostile. Jack's comlink crackled. Earth Command was already aware. "Jack," said a tired voice in his ear, "whatever you do, do not offend them. That handshake is legally binding." "We're checking the treaty archives now," Jack groaned. This was not how it was supposed to go. He was supposed to deliver a message of peace, open negotiations, maybe drink alien tea, not get engaged to a royal. He looked at Zayara again, who approached him now with a slow, graceful stride. "You are strange," she said softly. "I accept the bond." Her voice was smooth, alien, yet almost melodic. Jack rubbed the back of his neck. "There's been a mistake. I didn't know. On Earth, a handshake is just polite. It's not marriage." Zayara tilted her head again. "Then your people must be very brave to offer marriage so freely." Before Jack could respond, Emperor Threxen stepped forward. "You will be honored with a feast. And tomorrow, the Court of Union will begin preparation for the bonding ceremony." Jack was guided through gleaming corridors into what looked like a palace made of crystal and metal. Light shifting with every step. Servants handed him scrolls, rituals, histories, all written in Cathali script. He couldn't read a word of it. "How do I fix this?" he muttered. The AI orb responded, "If you back out now, you risk insulting the entire Cathali Dominion." According to Article 9, Section 4 of the Accord, rejecting the bond after initiation is considered an act of cultural betrayal. Jack sat on the edge of a stone bench in a circular chamber decorated with murals of past royal unions. He rubbed his face with both hands. "So I accidentally proposed, and now I'm engaged to an alien princess." The AI buzzed softly. That is correct. A few hours later, he was shown to his chamber room, large enough for a starship. Draped in soft blue silks and bathed in warm amber light, he found a tray of unfamiliar fruits and glowing water on a floating dish. He didn't eat. He just stared at the walls. Eventually, a message arrived in an official scroll, sealed in molten wax. It read, "You have been accepted by the Cathali princess. Refusal from this point forward is punishable by honor duel or banishment from the stars." Jack crumpled the scroll in frustration. As the soft hum of the palace faded into the silence of night, he realized just how deep the situation had become. Earth's future in the galaxy now rested on his next move. And somewhere, far below the chamber, in the quiet hall of the royal advisors, the rival houses of the court began to whisper. Some were thrilled, others were furious. Everyone wanted a human in the royal bloodline, but none of them, least of all, Jack, knew that this mistake was about to change the fate of two civilizations forever. Jack Harlan woke up to the sound of soft chimes and the scent of burning starwood, his mind still reeling from the previous day's mistake that had somehow turned into an alien engagement. And now he was the honored consort-to-be of Princess Ayara, heir to the Cathali Dominion, a powerful empire that Earth couldn't afford to anger. And while he hoped there was still a way out, the guards waiting outside his chamber did not seem to share that hope. They were polite, but firm, as they escorted him through tall, glowing corridors filled with symbols he couldn't read and people who bowed when they saw him, whispering in hushed voices. And as Jack entered the royal council hall, he found Zayara standing tall beside her father, Emperor Threxen, who addressed him with a booming voice. "Today, we begin the trial of worth," which made Jack's stomach twist because it sounded far too serious for something he didn't agree to in the first place. And Zayara explained with a small smile that any consort of royal blood must prove themselves in 3 challenges, one of tradition, one of wisdom, and one of strength, not just to honor her, but to earn the respect of the Dominion. And when Jack tried to protest again, the Emperor raised a hand and said, "To refuse now is to insult the throne." And his AI translator whispered that such a refusal could legally be seen as a breach of interstellar trust, possibly leading to diplomatic collapse or worse. So Jack nodded slowly, knowing Earth Command was still silent, likely scrambling for a plan. And soon he was given a ceremonial robe stitched with shimmering threads that felt like liquid metal, and shown the first part of the trial's formal court dance, where he had to match the movements of the princess in front of hundreds of watching nobles, all while maintaining balance, rhythm, and dignity. And though Jack had never danced in his life, especially not with 5 floating platforms under his feet and a live, blowing orchestra, he did his best, mimicking Zayara's movements, almost falling twice, but surviving. And the crowd didn't laugh. They clapped, slowly, thoughtfully, some even nodding. And after that came the wisdom test, where he was brought to the Temple of Seeing and asked to answer 5 questions about Cathali history and philosophy, which he had never studied. But he remembered small details from the scrolls left in his chamber and gave careful, honest answers, including admitting when he didn't understand something, which oddly seemed to please the temple elders, who valued humility over guessing. And finally came the trial of strength, which he assumed meant a duel or physical combat. But instead, he was taken to the underhall and locked inside a chamber with shifting walls, echoing voices, and strange lights meant to test emotional control and fear response. And for nearly an hour, Jack faced illusions of failure, guilt, and loneliness. But he gritted his teeth, reminded himself he was doing this to prevent war, and made it through, only to emerge sweating and shaking, but still standing. And when he stepped out, Zayara met him with an unreadable expression and said, "You passed," before adding more softly, "but you do not understand what's coming next." which only deepened Jack's unease. And as they returned to the ceremonial dining hall, a messenger rushed in with a sealed datapad, whispering something to Threxen that made the Emperor's expression tighten. And he handed it to Zayara, who read the contents quickly and then looked directly at Jack, saying, "They've released footage." And when the screen lit up, Jack saw a replay of the moment he had offered his handshake, caught from every angle, slowed down, then edited to include his confused face, the subtitled "Terran Trickery" flashing beneath it, and Zayara whispered, "The House of Velk is spreading rumors. You planned this bond to gain power," which made Jack's heart sink, realizing that not everyone had accepted him as a harmless diplomat. Some saw him as a threat to the throne, an outsider trying to climb into the royal bloodline. And as nobles whispered and the palace buzzed with tension, Zayara turned to him and said, "If you wish to clear your name, there is one way." And she told him about the duel of truth, an ancient tradition where the accused stands before the court and speaks their heart, unarmed, unfiltered, and if the court finds their words honest and honorable, the accusations are dismissed, but if not, the speaker is exiled, or worse. And though Jack felt completely out of his depth, he nodded, because he couldn't back down now. And that evening, as he stood on a raised platform under a glowing dome with 1,000 alien eyes watching him, he took a deep breath and spoke slowly, simply, from the heart, telling them about Earth, about how a handshake was just a gesture of peace, how he meant no harm, and how he never expected any of this, but was willing to face it, because walking away now would be cowardice. And as he finished, silence fell, and the court remained still for a long, heavy moment, before a single elder stood and tapped her staff, a gesture of approval, and then another, and another, until nearly half the court joined in, while others remained cold and unmoved. And Zayara approached him after, saying, "You didn't win them all, but you won enough." And before he could respond, the hall shook faintly, lights flickered, and a voice came over the palace intercoms, urgent and sharp, "Unidentified fleet approaching origin, unknown." And Jack stared at the sky as dark shapes entered orbit, larger than any Terran or Cathali ship, and for the first time since he arrived. It wasn't his engagement or his trial that frightened him, it was what was coming next. The sky above the palace turned red as the unknown fleet entered Cathali space, their massive ships casting shadows over the crystal towers. And while the royal guards moved into defensive formations, Jack Harlan stood at the edge of the observation platform, unsure if this was another test or the beginning of something far worse. But Emperor Threxen didn't wait. He declared the next stage of the bonding trials would continue, now under emergency protocols, and Jack, still dazed from the accusations and the duel of truth, barely had time to change into the strange armor they gave him, a smooth metal suit that adjusted itself to his body and shimmered like liquid, before he was loaded onto a dropship along with other trial candidates and sent to the surface of a nearby moon called Varric's Hollow, dangerous wilderness filled with native beasts and hidden threats. And the trial, Zayara had told him before he boarded, would not be watched like the others. It was private, deadly, and real, meant to show how a potential royal consort could survive without the palace's protection. But now, with the enemy fleet above them, it was more than a test. It was a fight for survival. And as the dropship descended, shaking from atmosphere turbulence, clutched the side rails and stared at the warriors around him, some Catholic nobles in elegant battle robes, others from distant planets allied with the Dominion, each carrying curved weapons and silent determination in their eyes, and none of them seemed happy that a human was in their trial, especially not the tall one named Korvik, who kept glaring at Jack like he was waiting for a reason to start a fight. And as the dropship touched down in the forest clearing, its doors opened, letting out a hiss of steam and the scent of burning roots. And the overseer announced, "Survive until the beacon calls you, Bakern, your place, or perish forgotten," before lifting off and vanishing into the gray sky. leaving the group scattered in the thick alien jungle, and almost immediately, the forest came alive with sounds, low growls, strange clicking, and the distant howl of something massive. And Jack moved quickly, using his training to find shelter, build a small fire, and scan the area for threats. But this moon was nothing like Earth, with trees that pulsed when touched, and animals that could mimic sound, including voices. And one night, he nearly followed a fake call for help, only to stop when his AI whispered that the voice didn't match any of the others from the dropship. And on the third day, while crossing a ravine on a fallen tree, he heard a scream reel, this time, and rushed to find Korvik pinned under a collapsed rock slide, his leg crushed and his energy blade flickering. And Jack hesitated, Koei, knowing the Kately warrior had treated him like a joke. But then he remembered what Zayara had said about earning trust, not just through strength, but through actions that show honor. And he moved fast, using a branch and rope to free Korvik and drag him to shelter, treating his wound with a healing spray from the supply kit. And for the first time, Korvik spoke to him without anger, saying, "You fight like a Terran, but your heart beats like one of ours," which was the closest thing to praise Jack had received since arriving. And the next morning, they heard the warning sirens echo across the forest. The enemy fleet had launched ground forces onto the moon, turning the trial into a battlefield. And now all candidates were under attack, not just by nature, but by machines and warriors in dark armor, moving like shadows through the trees. And Jack, knowing he couldn't outrun them, used what he had: his earth training, his quick thinking, and his refusal to give up to set traps from roots and rocks, create noise, diversions, and lead a small group of wounded candidates through the forest to a safer zone. And at one point, when their signal beacon was jammed, he climbed a twisted ridge under fire and planted a flare by hand, calling down a temporary shield dome that bought them precious time. And during those long hours, he barely slept, barely ate, and kept thinking not of glory, but of survival, of earning the right to walk back into that palace, not as an intruder, but as someone who had faced the worst and didn't run. And finally, after 5 days on Varric's Hollow, the sky opened again, this time with Kately rescue ships lowering bright beams into the clearing. And Jack, covered in mud, blood, and sweat, limped into the light, helping a younger candidate to her feet as they rose together. And when they landed back at the palace, the courtyard was packed with nobles, soldiers, and high-ranking officials, all silent as Jack stepped out. And Zayara was there waiting, her expression unreadable, but her voice steady as she said, "You returned with honor, and with others who owe you their lives." And even Emperor Threxen nodded slightly, acknowledging his strength. And as Jack bowed, exhausted but still standing, a ripple passed through the crowd. Respect, not just for surviving the trial, but for showing what it meant to be human in a galaxy that didn't expect much from Earth. And just when he thought it might finally be over, a shadow moved at the edge of the courtyard, and a voice rang out from the royal balcony, one of the noble lords from the House of Velk, the ones who had spread lies about Jack, now stepping forward with narrowed eyes and to challenge. Strength in the forest is not strength in the palace. Let the consort prove himself in the court of blades. And before Jack could speak, the emperor raised a hand, saying, "Enough trials for now. He has earned rest." But the seed of doubt had been planted again, and Jack knew the political games weren't over yet, not with enemies hiding behind silks and smiles. And as the sun set over the towers of the Kately city, casting long shadows across the polished stone, Jack realized that he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was becoming part of something larger, something dangerous, and whatever came next, he'd face it, not just for himself, but for the uneasy peace between Earth and the stars. Jack Harlan stood on the balcony of the high tower, watching the alien suns set over the violet horizon of the Kately homeworld. his muscles still sore from the trial on Varric's Hollow, but his mind far too restless to rest, 'cause something in the palace felt wrong to quiet, too carefully ever since his return. Whispers had followed him down every corridor, half-formed greetings mixed with unreadable stares, and even though the Emperor had honored his bravery, Jack could feel tension in the air, like a thread pulled too tight, ready to snap. And that night, during the formal feast, he noticed key nobles missing from their seats, including Lord Velk, the same man who had publicly challenged his worth just days before. And though Zayara sat beside Jack, her voice soft and proud as she spoke of his trials, her fingers trembled slightly as she gripped her goblet, a sign she was uneasy too. And Jack leaned close, whispering, "What aren't they telling us?" And Zayara didn't answer right away, only glanced at a pair of tall guards in silver cloaks stationed near the archway. Before replying with measured words, the court smiles in daylight, but sharpens blades at night. And later, as he walked the inner halls, guided by his personal AI and half hoping for sleep, he caught sight of Korvac, again no longer a rival, but a quiet ally who motioned for him to follow without a word, leading him through a back passage lit by strange blue stones into a secret chamber behind the Hall of Judgments, where holograms of the Cathali star system blinked in slow rotation. And Korvac showed him intercepted messages, hidden transmissions, bouncing from the House of Velk to a cloaked ship in orbit, with codes not used since the Cathali civil skirmishes decades ago. And Jack frowned, realizing what this meant. The rumors, the challenge, even the hostile fleet that attacked during the trial, they weren't coincidences. They were part of something larger, a plan to weaken the royal line and discredit Zayara's claim to the throne by targeting her chosen consort, the outsider from Earth. And Korvac warned him in a grim voice, "If you fail now, it won't just be your life lost, it'll be hers too." And Jack clenched his jaw, suddenly understanding that his place beside Zayara wasn't just symbolic anymore. It was a threat to powerful families who wanted the throne for themselves. And over the next few days, Kay began playing the court's quiet game, attending every event with polite smiles while watching the way the nobles moved, the way their eyes shifted, how conversations fell silent when he passed. And through it all, he and Zayara began building a list of names nobles who had once supported the Emperor, but now kept their alliances vague, their wealth hidden. And late one night, Jack received a message from an unknown sender, a single line of text that read, "Star crowns bend when fire rises from below," followed by coordinates deep inside the palace vaults. And against his better judgment, he went alone, sneaking past guards, using a stolen cloak and a scrambling device Korvac had given him. And there, in the underground chamber, lit by glowing red orbs, he found a forgotten data crystal marked with the seal of the first Empress. And when he activated it, a hidden message played, one recorded generations ago, warning of a bloodline split hidden from history, and how the current House of Velk's founder had once betrayed the royal family to seize power, but had failed. His name wiped from memory, his shame sealed away. And as the message ended, Jack realized this crystal was the weapon to traitors, feared a truth strong enough to destroy their legacy if revealed. And just then, the vault doors slammed shut, and shadowy figures emerged from the dark, led by none other than Lord Velk himself, his smile cold as he said, "Curiosity is dangerous for humans." And Jack braced for a fight, heart pounding. But before Velk's guards could strike, the wall behind them burst open with a thunderous crack, and Zayara entered, flanked by her elite guards, her voice sharp with fury as she declared, "You dare threaten the chosen consort in royal ground." And Velk, not expecting her, stumbled back, shouting that Jack was a thief and a spy. But Zayara simply raised the crystal and played the ancient message again, letting the truth echo through the chamber like a blade. And the silence that followed was louder than any scream, 'cause now the lie was broken, and those who had followed Velk began to look at him with doubt, fear, and even disgust, and the Emperor arrived moments later, his face carved from stone, and he ordered Velk arrested without a trial, saying simply, "Let history swallow him like it did his ancestors." And though victory had been won that night, Jack knew it wasn't the end, only the first blow struck in a hidden war that was still burning beneath the throne. And as he and Zayara stood together once more beneath the stars, she whispered, "You were never meant to survive here, Jack Harlan, but now you may be the reason we do." Jack Harlan sat beside Zayara in the Royal Strategy Chamber as holographic maps lit up the room with shifting stars, read enemy markers, and blinking alerts. His eyes focused on the newly intercepted transmissions from the edge of Catholi space, where unknown ships had been spotted slipping past border beacons, silent and fast, their design unlike anything from the known dominions. And though Lord Velk's betrayal had been crushed, the threat was far from over, because now someone else was moving, using the chaos in the royal court as cover to bring in a new danger. And as Zayara tightened her jaw, her voice low and controlled, she said, "Okay, this doesn't match the House of Velk's methods. This is something older, darker, and Corvic." Now, part of Jack's small circle of trusted allies nodded grimly, saying the weapons the scouts found on the border attackers had strange markings, ones believed to belong to the Felner, an ancient species that vanished centuries ago after the Great Void War. And Jack leaned forward, asking, "So, why are they back now?" But no one had the answer, and before the meeting ended, a message came through directly to Zayara's private channel, crypted with a cipher only a few living Catholi knew how to use. And when she opened it, her face changed, hardened into something Jack had never seen before. She turned to him slowly, saying, "We must go to the Ash Sanctum," which was a forbidden temple on the edge of the royal continent, buried under black stone and guarded by oath-bound warriors who never left their post. And the next day they left the palace with only a small escort, moving quickly through silver deserts and jagged hills, until the structure came into view, a towering monument built from fire-scorched rock, its doors sealed by ancient sigils, and the high guardian, a tall woman named Arxa, stepped forward, her eyes full of warning, saying, "Only those prepared to lose what they love may enter." But Zayara gave no answer, only stepped forward with Jack beside her, and the doors opened with a hiss of warm wind, revealing a dark hall filled with glowing runes and whispering echoes. And inside, deep in the sanctum, they found a chamber of mirrors, 13 polished obsidian panels surrounding a circular platform, and there, floating in the center, was a memory crystal glowing with unstable light, which pulsed as they approached and activated without touch, projecting an image of a woman who looked just like Zayara, only older, wearing the old star crown of the Lost Queens. And she said, "If you have come here, then the Felner have returned." Before explaining how centuries ago, the royal bloodline had hidden something from the galaxy, a secret alliance made in desperation when the first star empires fell. An agreement between the Catholi ancestors and the Felner, promising them sanctuary in exchange for forbidden knowledge. But that pact was broken when the Felner tried to seize control, leading to a hidden war that was erased from history to protect the royal line. And now, someone had awakened the last of the Felner sleeper agents, using them to strike while the Dominion was weak. And Jack, taking in this revelation, understood that this enemy wasn't just after power, they wanted vengeance. And he asked quietly, who brought them back? And Zayara's answer was like a blade to his spine, "My former betrothed." And suddenly, everything made sense. The subtle sabotage, the hidden messages, the perfect timing. Because before Jack, there had been another, a noble warrior named Thuric from the outer provinces, chosen long ago to be Zayara's mate, but cast aside when he was caught using forbidden tech. And he had vanished into exile. But now, It seemed he had returned, not as a suitor, but as a destroyer. And as they left the sanctum, Zayara, silent and cold with anger, a drone scout appeared in the sky, dropping fast and broken, sparking as it landed at their feet. T's last recorded image playing in flickers. Derek himself, clad in dark armor, leading Felner hybrids through a scorched village near the Cathali border, leaving no survivors, and back at the palace, panic had begun to spread, with more reports of attacks, strange disappearances, and whole patrols going dark in the outer systems. And the Emperor ordered a high alert, but even he looked uncertain as he faced this ancient threat reborn. And that night, Jack stood alone on the palace balcony, watching the twin moons rise, his mind racing not with fear, but with pressure, knowing that his presence had changed the path of Ziyara's fate. And now he stood in the center of a storm that was never meant for him. And when Ziyara joined him, her voice was quiet but firm as she said, "He knows you've replaced him. Jack, this isn't just about war anymore, it's personal." And Jack nodded, his voice steady as he said, "Then I'll finish, what?" He started, "And show him why you chose me." And over the next days, they worked in secret, forming a strike plan with Korvik, Orcs, and a handful of trusted commanders, mapping out Tharek's likely movements based on past exile patterns, and they identified a hidden system one with an ancient forge world once abandoned by the Cathali, but now showing strange energy signatures. And when they arrived in stealth ships, flying low and silent under planetary interference, they found it fortified with dark towers, energy spikes, strange machines pulsing with Felner tech. And as they landed, Jack suited up in the armor, gifted to him after the trial, now modified with stealth plating and a pulse spear that thrummed in his grip, and with Zayara by his side. He led the strike team into the forge facility, fighting through hybrid beasts with glowing eyes and machines that screamed like broken minds. And deeper inside, past flame vents and gravity traps, they found Hintharek, standing atop a throne of broken drones, his eyes burning with red light, his voice low and poisonous as he said, "You were never meant to be her mate, Earthborn." And Jack stepped forward, not with rage, but with calm determination, saying, "And you were never meant to survive this." For charging forward as the room exploded into chaos, and their duel began blade against spear, old honor against new resolve. And though the wreck was stronger, faster, shaped by cruel science, Jack fought smarter, using misdirection, timing, and grit, and finally, with a surge of energy, he struck Tharek's control node, disabling his enhancements. And as the hybrid systems collapsed, the tower began to fall, and they barely escaped before fire swallowed the sky, leaving only smoke and silence. And as they flew back to the Catholic capital, Jack sat beside Ziyara in the med bay, his body bruised, but his heart steady, and she turned to him with a tired smile and whispered, "You're not just my mate, now you're my equal." And as the stars stretched around them, Jack knew the final challenge was still coming. But now, for the first time, they'd face it together. Jack Harlan stood once again in the grand hall of the Cathali Palace, this time not as a confused outsider, but as someone who has survived trials, crushed conspiracies, fought ancient enemies, and earned not only respect, but something far deeper belonging. And as the twin suns of the capital world filtered through the crystal glass dome above, casting rainbows across polished obsidian floors, a strange weight pressed on his shoulders, because peace, no matter how brightly declared, was fragile. And today was the first official meeting between Earth's High Command and the Cathali royal family. A summit built around unity, future trade, and military alliance, but also the silent hope that what Jack and Zayara had built could now be shared with their people. And as the Earth delegation entered through the Golden Gates, led by Admiral Voss, with polished boots, silver uniforms, and sharp eyes, scanning every alien curve of the chamber, Jack felt a flicker of doubt, Would they understand this world? Or would they fear it, challenge it, break it the way humans sometimes did when faced with what they couldn't control and standing beside him? Zayara noticed his tension and whispered, "You gave them the first gift already." And Jack asked, "What was that?" And she smiled, "A handshake." Suddenly it all came rushing back, how this had started with one simple gesture, misunderstood, misread, and yet, somehow, fate had made it into something more. And now, as Voss approached, flanked by officers, and bowed stiffly, Jack stepped forward, not with a weapon or a royal command, but the same open hand he had once extended to Zayara. And for a moment, the chamber held its breath, but then Voss accepted it with a firm shake, and the tension broke, like a cracked seal, replaced by cautious nods, small smiles, and careful words. And as the summit began, with translators humming and documents projected in soft light, a messenger rushed into the hall, pale and breathless, holding a carved crystal redan, ancient device used only for urgent codes, and handed it to Zayara, whose expression darkened as she read the glowing text, and she handed it silently to Jack. His eyes scanned the message, heart thudding because it spoke of a hidden vault on one of the Cathali moons, recently activated after centuries of silence, a failsafe triggered only if a false piece had been detected. And it warned of a machine buried deep in the moon's core, designed long ago by Cathali ancestors to wipe out any civilization that corrupted their bloodline. And Jack understood in that moment what it meant. Some remnant system, untouched by time, still didn't recognize their union as true, and, if left alone, it would wake a weapon of extinction. And so, without waiting, he turned to Voss, quickly summarizing the threat. And surprisingly, the Admiral didn't hesitate. He gave Jack his full support, and together, they left the summit in the hands of aides and rushed aboard a high-speed cruiser, racing toward the moon, known as Vorkath, its surface cold and lifeless, hiding secrets older than Earth's pyramids. And upon landing, they found a structure, rising from the ice, built from black metal and shaped like a hand reaching for the stars. And inside, they walked narrow halls lit by pulsing lights, their shadows stretching as ancient systems stirred, reacting to Zayara's royal blood and Jack's human presence with confusion. And suddenly, mechanical voices echoed, asking questions, in a forgotten dialect, demanding proof of unity, not just through blood or title, but memory. And, one by one, visions were forced into their minds, tests crafted by the vault itself, making them relive each challenge, each moment of mistrust, each time they nearly gave up. And as Jack saw again the look in Zayara's eyes during the trial by fire, the way she reached for him when Velk betrayed them, and how she never once let doubt claim her, he knew his truth. And when the vault asked for his answer, he simply said, "We are more than a choice, we're a change." And suddenly the machine quieted, the light steadied, and a voice soft, female, and old said, "Accepted." And the power core powering the extinction device began to shut down, the vault sealing itself once more, this time with new data encoded into its eternal memory. And outside, under the starlight, Jack and Zayara stood together, holding hands as the cruiser returned to pick them up. And upon their return, the summit had turned into a celebration, with Earth and Cathali envoys sharing ideas, stories, laughter, even awkward dances. And when the Emperor called for quiet, he raised his voice across the chamber, saying, "Let history show that when the stars divided us, it was not might or fear that united our worlds. It was one man, one woman, and a handshake." And as applause filled the hall, Jack looked at Zayara, her eyes bright with pride, and whispered, "So, how'd you feel about Earth weddings?" And she laughed, her voice like music across the stars. And somewhere, far above, the ancient vault on Vorkath settled into silence. finally at peace, because love had passed its final test. And this time, no machine, no enemy, no fear could rewrite what had begun with a single touch between two different worlds.